change is so inevitable in all of our lives and everything. So that we're going through such a significant change, or seemingly that we're going through change right now, it may feel very scary to a lot of people. And that's what I'm hearing from the community and from clients, that change, it's just too much change. And that's oftentimes what causes such anxiety, is that there's too much change. It's too fast. It's happening so quickly. But what in reality is that change is something that is inevitable. As it's part of nature. It's part of human nature, and there's change everywhere. But we've gotten very comfortable in our lives that we haven't seen it, and we haven't been in practice with how to handle change in a healthy way. So I want to talk about that and give you some tips on how to approach change and approach life with a lot of change, and see if there are things that you can do and implement today and throughout this week that will allow you to kind of come back more into balance with all of the change that's going on. And we know that there's so much rapid change happening, from new data coming out and the repercussions of certain things. But I'll start with this. I'm going to start with a story where I wrote an article years ago about Chairman Mao, who was saying he saw that, or he was given the information that the sparrows were eating the grain. So as a result, he made the decision to wipe out all of the sparrows. And that choice did make a change. It made a change to eliminate what was looked at as the cause of what was happening with the grain being eaten. And so the first year, it looked like the grain was now there, and they did their job because they got rid of the sparrows that were eating the grain. But the next season, locusts took over and ate not only all of the grain, completely wiping out the grain, but other crops as well. And as a result, there were millions that died of starvation. So that's an example of making choices, making change, and the repercussions. So there's always going to be a ripple effect. There's always going to be a cause and effect. It's a universal law. So we want to understand that, and we want to look at how we can come back into a place of looking at the cause and the effect. Right now, it may feel like we are the effect. So we can look at it from that viewpoint, and what we would want to do is then go look at the cause. Why are we feeling so at effect of this? If you're feeling effect in your finances, that you're upside down, or you don't even have savings or reserves for 3 months or maybe even 3 weeks, what's the actual root cause of that, as opposed to the effect that you're feeling now in your health? If you're feeling if you're sick, or your immune system's down, what's the actual cause of that? Because today, right now, is a result of a cause. Just like today, what we are causing will create an effect in the future. Just like today, the way we respond to the effects that we're feeling from a previous cause will in turn also affect our future. So that's why we really have to take a step back and look at our lives and look at what we're here for. What is our purpose? These basics really, that ideally would be lovely if we were taught when we're children and growing up, so that we understand this and it's integrated into us as human beings. But unfortunately, it's not. Unfortunately, we're taught a lot of facts and figures, and we're tested on that. And while that can be fine for a certain lifestyle, it's not necessarily sustainable. So let's look at how we can take this step back, and we can implement some simple things The first one I'm going to suggest is our mindset. We want to look at this piece, and I've been saying this for a while, is that, and especially as a coach, I mean, this is the first principle that I teach as a coach, and that's personal responsibility. Once again, not personal responsibility as blame. We're not trying to blame anyone or shame ourselves or be in a guilt response. Instead, we want to look at how can we be more responsible? How can we take responsibility for our life as it is right now? I can list things that I am frustrated about and not happy about in my own life right now. And I can look at decisions that I made that led to where I am right now. And that's all that I'm asking for us to do with this. Not to do it as blame, not to punish ourselves, but instead to step back and look at, okay, what is it that we can actually do to take responsibility right here, right now, so that the effects we create, because we know there's going to be an effect, are the most optimal and ideally optimum for all involved. Ideally, I mean, that's really the bigger picture and what's ideal. A lot of times that picture is only looked at what's good for me. I'm only going to do what's good for me, so let me make that decision, and if it doesn't benefit me, then and then I'm not going to do it. So we have to start shifting that, and I'm hoping that as a result of some of this kind of shaking up the world, the entire world here, we're all in the experience now, that we can shift from this idea of what's in it for me, forget everybody else, but instead looking at the bigger picture. How can we do what is the greatest good for the greatest number, and how will it benefit everyone? I'm not talking about becoming well, I'm not even going to go into politics, because this isn't about politics really. This is about doing what's right versus having to be right. Because there's going to be a lot of information and a lot of new studies that come out, and as a result of all of this, ideally we're going to come out of everything stronger, more aware, more competent, and that's where this mindset comes. I've mentioned Carol Dweck's Mindset before, and I will say that that's a great read right now, and a great principle to follow is that we'd have to shift out of the fixed mindset and move into a growth mindset, and look at how this experience, all of these experiences, and what's really interesting is this experience, while it seems, because it's aware, everyone's aware of it, seems maybe so daunting, and yet it's very much like all the pieces of how nature evolves. We have growth and expansion and harvest, and then we have as we finish our harvesting, we start to put away, and we start to go into more of this more internal spiral of winter, right? So we go a little bit more into dormancy and contemplation, and then things start to change again, and that's what the seasons do. Everything's changing, and so now as we come into springtime, and in the northern hemisphere, things are blossoming and we're expanding, and there's lots of change. Think about the life of a butterfly. There's an enormous amount of change, to just phenomenal amount of change, and science has never been able to understand that completely. So are we going to understand every little nuance of this experience and this virus? I think that that's not necessarily something that's vital. If you look at if we expand out to the broader picture, we want to gather information and understand this, but we also want to look at it as a point of understanding, ourselves in a better way, in a more evolving way, and looking at this growth mindset, really looking at this as we are at our very essence growth, or let me say this, we are potential, we are pure potential, we are ever evolving, we have so much possibility. So if we look at it from that viewpoint, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, my way of life, I can't go into work, so I can't get my paycheck, so I can't pay my rent, so I can't buy the groceries that I'm used to buying, and doing this very fixed mindset, we've got to shift out of this and realize, okay, what is it that we can call it the universe? What's the universe trying to tell me? What's God trying to tell me? And we can use anything that we want to term that, but the bottom line is we have to reconnect to ourselves and what that is going to look like for ourselves. My suggestions are, during times of change like this, are to definitely recommit to your own inner values and to really hone in on that, to clarify for yourself. If you are not clear on what your values are, this is probably one of the best times to do that. I love doing that in the wintertime when I'm quiet and peaceful, and but this is a good time too. So we have to look at what is evolving within us. What is it that I need to let happen for myself to expand here? Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to hold things so tightly. I am absolutely notorious for this, of wanting I want this and I'm going to make this happen, and by golly, I'm just going to do everything I can to make this happen. And that's when I start to struggle. That's when things become very challenging. So if we can learn to let go a little bit and let happen what needs to happen. Now, with that said, balancing. I have multiple hats that I wear as a mom, as a business owner, as doing a lot of things in my community as a volunteer minister. And in doing that, I do have to have specific rituals in place. What do those rituals look like? It has to look like I have specific meal times, and I highly recommend this for you. I don't think anyone would disagree that family is not probably one of the most important. For me, family is the most important. And I will go to say faith, and I have a different idea on faith. I don't go to a religious institution, but I do believe in faith, as in that there is a higher essence. And so that does start my day. I go into the first hour of my day is about connecting to that higher self, that higher source, something higher, something bigger than me, bigger than all of this. And when I do take that time to go in and do this, and I highly recommend this, is that silence, going into the silence, maybe taking a journal with you and being able to just allow what needs to unfold and write that down and get some ideas, get some inspiration, and look at things from that insightful place. I believe we can all have more of that. And then the next, family is what I was talking about before. And so I would look at having regular meal times minimally, where you sit down and you've set the table. Maybe you've let some of the kids set the table, or allow them to contribute and make the table and the space beautiful. Have your meal blessings and connection time. It reminds me of the talking stick, or having an empathy circle. So at meal times, when you've shared a beautiful meal together and you've come together connected, sometimes it's also very beneficial. And this is something that I would do more of, maybe not around meals because it might ruin the digestion, but after you've had meal or in a comfortable time, set up a family circle where you can let the heart speak so that there's no judgment. That is a very, very simple way to allow people to express whatever they're feeling without being judged for it, or without being afraid that someone's going to storm off or throw something. And the simple guidelines of that are You can either, I mean, you can take a heart. We have a jade stone that we use, but you can take anything. And when that person is holding the, it was talking stick or the heart, so you can use anything. My goodness, you could just use a book, right? You could use a book here. When that person's holding the book, they have the floor. We're going to listen to what they have to say. We're going to just listen and not need to respond and not need to advise, not to interject. And then when that person has completed what they need to say, what they feel, what it is they want to say, then go on to the next one. They pass it to the next, pass it, and we listen. And by the time you go through that 2 to 3 times, there is so much relief and release. So that's something that you can do internally if you are if you are quarantined, like our family is. We are probably looking at another 14 to 21 days with this COVID. And so you want to put some tools down for your family to use, because you will go a little crazy because of how you can't express things, and things are going to bottle up and then be like a pressure cooker. So my recommendation would be doing that maybe even on a daily basis at this stage. This is definitely something that I recommend for businesses as well. And doing that right now, we're doing that virtually with a couple of my clients, and having, before the meeting actually gets on and going with the business of the business, we allow each person to go through and speak what they need to speak. And if that means we go through once, twice, then that's what happens. But I can tell you as a result that then the business can get on with the business, and that is so helpful. So that's a great tool. That's what I'm going to share for another for our Monday morning mentoring this week. And you know, the other rituals that I'm teaching always, because you know I have the movement, mindset, and nutrition. That's something that I think is foundation before you can start creating the business and all of the other things. Is you have to have your movement. So make sure your ritual of being hydrated, of your movement, of calm time, mindset. So what is it that you need to do for yourself to be clear in your thinking, so that you can get to work and do the things that you need to do? Could be taking a walk. Those are things that I've written down here. I'm going to finish with one last thing, and that is possibility thinking. So this is another exercise that I do when I speak to groups, and the group has become really stifled. There's this exercise that I will start out with, and you can do this for yourself by just sketching out, but the concept is possibility thinking. So the really simple question of it is, what else is possible? What else is possible? So if someone comes to you and they are, this is the only way, this has to get done, this is the problem. It's like, okay, and so it seems like it's an emergency situation. I would, before acting in any way, I would ask, what else is possible? And you could go to the absurd on possibilities and come all the way around to something so simple as the mundane. And I think that's something that's really needed right now, is that we look for what else is possible. Not because we're trying to nail down an answer to take an action, but right now instead looking at possibilities, possibility thinking. Because the truth is, we are limitless beings. We are infinite in our potential. And when we get stuck in, there is only one way, and this is the only way, and you must do this, we will destroy ourselves as a human species, and we will completely cave ourselves in as businesses, as families, as individuals. And so we want to expand our thinking into possibility thinking. So I hope this helps. I hope that you can take this to heart and look at this not only for yourself, but for your family, and then for the community. If you are a business owner, you have an organization of 3, to 3,000 to 3 million, you want to have this understanding of possibility thinking and understand that you don't have to act off of everything. There are times when we have to act in an emergency basis. I don't believe that we need to be acting in the emergency basis that we are, but we have gotten so complacent as many people have become complacent, and as a result we're seeing how there's not a lot of congruent collective common sense. So that collective common sense that I'd like to see more of can come about from each of us leading from the best version of ourselves. And I'm committed to that. I'm committed to first myself. I mean, what can I be responsible for myself? So I want to lead from the best version that I can be. The second, I have my children, so I will teach them to lead themselves from the best version that they are. And then through this community, through Monday Morning Mentoring, that's my goal, that's my mission through communicating this. And I will show up and do this and hope for you and inspire you, ideally, to lead yourself, lead your family, lead your community, lead your business from the best version of you. So what does that look like? What do you have to get back in touch with in order to create that best version of you? What rituals do you need to have in place in order to do that? How are you going to respond? What's the cause? What's the effect? Really taking it back down to the simplicity, peeling back that, reverse engineering these concepts and really peeling back this fear, because fear is definitely false evidence appearing real a lot of times. So remember that equation, false evidence appearing real. Shed some light, turn on the light and look, rather than panicking over just some piece of information. Look at the balance of it, and remember, we're part of nature. So there's going to be today we could have enormous sadness, and the tears of today can bring the flowers of tomorrow. All right, making an amazing week. You can. You have the ability to. And we know we can, so go out and inspire whomever you're here to inspire and lead the life that you are here to lead, okay? Peace and blessings.